Hi, Vikings First and SKOL family. It is your girl Sal Spice coming to you from a special pre recorded episode. By the time you see this, your girl will be horizontal, either on the couch or in my bed with a huge foam wedge stuck under my foot because I am having yet another foot surgery here. Next week. So today we have a very special guest, the youngest Vikings content creator in our community, JJ Vikings. You might know him. So we are just going to catch up with him. I'm going to ask him some questions about his journey as a content creator. And then, of course, we have to get his thoughts on the Vikings last season because I haven't talked to him a bit and what's in store for 2025. So let's get into it. JJ, hello.
Hello, what's up, guys?
How you doing?
Doing good.
Doing good. You're on spring break, right?
Is it
Or
spring
no?
already?
I don't know. I figured since you were home all week, maybe it was spring break.
February
Like,
vacation or whatever it is.
oh, yeah, I guess that would be way early spring break. Yeah, that
I
makes
pay
a lot.
attention to the break rather than what the break is called.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I guess I got tripped up on that because my college spring break is already like the very first week of March. Like I think it starts the first, which is kind of weird. But anyway, how are you doing? Are you bored without Vikings football? It's been like a month and a half.
It's kind of depressing, but it's already depressing enough watching the Vikings play, so it's kind of a mixed feeling.
Are you still depressed about the?
No, no,
No, you moved
no,
on.
actually.
Yeah.
Um, what helps a lot is Madden.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. When you play Madden, do you play as the Vikings?
Yeah, I used JJ McCarthy for the entire season though, not Sam Darnold.
Oh, okay. And how did that go for you?
He throws dimes.
Oh, well, that gives me hope. That gives me hope that will translate from Madden to next season. Yeah, I was pretty depressed about the loss. I took it pretty hard. I ended up going to the game out in Arizona, so it was a rough one for me. But I think I'm finally snapping out of it. It's just it's weird having nothing to do on Sunday, but
Yeah.
it's pretty.
Um, It was tough. It was always tough with the Vikings loss, especially a big one. Not just because of the loss, I take that pretty well already, but it's going to school the next day as an out-of-state Vikings fan. That always sucks. Knowing that kids from a different area that you're in, like they constantly just made fun of me for the Vikings losses. Doesn't affect me anymore. But so basically the way my team played was the way that I'd be treated the next day. That's
And for those that don't know, you live in Massachusetts, right?
Yeah, born and raised in Minnesota though for 7 years of my life.
Yeah, yeah.
An incredible 7 years.
I totally relate to what you said about people having stuff to say at school because I was the same way, even though it was 20. I can't even do math, but way before you were there. But same, like when I was in seventh grade, when the Vikings went to play the Giants in that NFC Championship game, which I believe was in 2000 season.
Oh my god.
I
Oh.
I was wearing like Vikings shirts to school all week long. I was talking crap to people because in Virginia, where I'm from, it's all like NFC East fans. Even I don't know. It's really weird because it's all four of them, and so I just was so cocky walking around there. And then I couldn't go to school for like 2 days because 42-0 was so embarrassing.
Seventh
uh,
grade's when it started for me too. That's when it started for me too.
Yeah, and I learned a good lesson though. I learned to not talk crap to people because it's out of my control. So I learned a good lesson that day, but it was tough. And yeah, they love to bring it up. But I think me
Yeah.
skipping school for those first 2 days, they kind of forgot by the time I came back. So that was good. But anyway, yeah, okay. So we said the season's over, and that's an adjustment. What about the Super Bowl? Who were you going? Are you happy with the results there?
Don't get me wrong. I'm glad the Chiefs got what they deserved, but I wasn't glad that it came from the Eagles and not any other team. It could have been any other team besides Philadelphia. I can't in the rightful and clean soul. I can't really say clean, but almost squeaky clean soul in my body. I cannot root for the Eagles ever.
I'm with you. I'm with you. It's Eagles and Packers for me. Those are the two. Hell no. So while it was refreshing to see someone new win, to see them win was certainly not satisfying at all. I would have rather the Chiefs won for sure.
Yeah,
I actually didn't even watch most of it because it was just like I don't really care. So it was on mute and in the background. But all right. Well, I want the Skoldiers and Spice audience to get to know you a little better. You and I talked, I want to say it was last summer. So I got to know you and I met you at Skol Fest in
correct.
September. And that was, of course, great. But let's talk about how did you start making Vikings content? Like what inspired you to do that?
September 10th, 2022. My first video on YouTube. I didn't get Twitter until the summer of 2023, so a year after I started my YouTube channel.
Wow.
My first game was the Vikings Packers game in September of 2022. That's the first video that I did on it. You'll see me after the win. You'll see me gritting within the first 3 seconds. Ignore that part. Just focus on my analysis. But that was the best first game to start my channel.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
basically how I started it. Just my mom was talking about that whole YouTube channel since August of that same year. So on August 1st, I actually moved to Mass from California. So it was like a month after I was settling. So that's kind of when I started.
Cool. So had you talked to your mom about that being an idea of yours or was it her idea?
Her idea. A lot of my success is my mom's idea. I'll just bring that to light now. My mom may not be on camera all the time, but most of the ideas that become greatness for me come from her. So
Oh my gosh, that's so cool that she's so supportive of that.
absolutely.
Good. I feel like it's hard. Maybe it's easier for you because you're younger, but it's hard to like find parents or adults that even like really get social media because they didn't necessarily grow up with it. And so, like for me, sometimes I mean, I know my parents have no understanding of what I do whatsoever. And I was like, okay, like if somebody wants to listen to you talk, sure. But I love that. So okay, you that first video, you got a lot of engagement and that kind of pushed you to do more content? How did that go?
I got a lot of engagement from friends that I've known since I'm gonna say well, friends and parents and adults that I've known since I was like almost a toddler. I'd say 6 years old actually. I got encouragement from my Minnesota friends, from the parents of them, from from a friend that I met, and I forget where he lives now. I think he's in Louisiana. Another friend I think from California. Just a lot of people. So I think that the first video that I did got a lot of engagement because they finally saw someone they knew starting something that they or someone they know still but starting something incredible and they wanted to encourage me as soon as possible.
That's so cool. I feel like when I started doing content, like it was like back in 2018, I did a weekly radio show with Bob Sansevier. And I was always terrified. I never posted about it like on my own, like my Facebook or places where people knew me in real life from back in the day, because I was kind of embarrassed. And I don't know, it kind of stayed that way for a while. But I mean, now I do it and it's cool. But I definitely didn't have that much confidence coming out of the gate. So I love that for you. It's so cool.
Oh, and something funny has been going on in my head for a long time. For a long time. I lived in Roseville, Minnesota in 2017, and we have this incredible year. This incredible year. I witnessed the Minneapolis Miracle in person. I got to watch the Super Bowl, probably the best Super Bowl in my life, Super Bowl 52. And the Eagles and Patriots. The Patriots finally lost, and just all those great things happened. I then moved to Tracy, California in 2018. Then the Vikings are mid, and we get one of the worst Super Bowls of our lifetime, a 13-3 Rams Pats game. Does that seem like a coincidence at all? I
Yeah.
mean, the Vikes were good when I was there.
We got to get you back here for more than one game a year for sure, because it sounds like you're adding some spark. When you said that Super Bowl, I was like, who the heck played that Super Bowl? When you said the best one. And then I remembered, oh, I didn't watch that Super Bowl at all because I was still so miserable from the NFC Championship game. I was
Oh
like, I
yeah.
cannot watch this. I went like to Key West on a whim and I'm like, I got to get out of here. I can't be in this city with Eagles fans here, Patriots fans, like having the time of their life. I got to go. So I didn't even turn it on. That's why I didn't remember. But so now, are you usually going to like one game a season? You always come for at least a game, right?
Probably more next year. I'd
Oh,
say I'd say maybe like two or three.
oh my gosh. Look
But I
at you.
can't I can't I can't speak early though. I can't speak early because if I say like more than what we're anticipating, it might not actually happen. So it's best to just stay humble about it until I know what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. But I'm hopeful.
Well, it's tough to commit to any two when you haven't seen the schedule yet. So until like the end of May when it comes out, it's really hard to plan your life. I schedule release is like one of my favorite days because I'm like, okay, I can finally figure out what I'm doing from August to hopefully January because just going to every game and doing the tailgate and stuff, it's without that schedule, I can't commit to anything past then. Like the girls are like, "Hey, you want to have a cabin weekend?" I don't know. I don't know. I can't tell you. Um,
Right.
like I pre-committed this year to a girls' cabin weekend, and it was August 10th weekend. That weekend that it was like JJ's first preseason game, and it was a home game, and that was the first game I've missed in like 10 years. So I had so much FOMO over missing a preseason game. So I can, yeah, that May scheduled date is always circled on my calendar for sure. But
By JJ, you meant McCarthy, right?
yes, McCarthy. He had like the
Got it.
drive. Yeah, and everyone was super excited about it. I more so was bummed about missing the tailgate because it was such nice weather. The preseason tailgate is always super fun because the game outcome doesn't really matter. But okay, so you started on YouTube. That was your first. You said you didn't get into the TikTok, or sorry, the Twitter until later. What about the Instagram and all of that? Did you start that like around the same time?
Instagram, I started, I'm going to say late into the 2023 season. I started that.
Okay.
Um, TikTok, I may not really ever like really invest into. Um,
Why
but
not?
my mom always emphasizes to me that we want to make some a nice little cup of change out of our content, and TikTok doesn't pay much. You know,
Oh, I think that they do. I think they do. I think they
because
pay the best. They pay way better than Instagram for sure.
I count on YouTube. I count on YouTube for like if we're talking about the best app for financials, I'm gonna say YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. I think I shied away from the TikTok for a while because it was just kind of overwhelming. But just so you know, in case you want to start it, they changed it now. So when you make your TikTok, you automatically download it without the watermark. Like forever, it kept the watermark on there, so you felt like you couldn't use it on Instagram because they would then like take it off the algorithm. But so now it's like, okay, first I do my TikTok because it's got no watermark. Then I put that on Instagram and then I put it on YouTube Shorts. So I get all three out of it, which is cool. And then it's cool to see where it does the best also. But yeah, the TikTok algorithm, they are paying better and they're censoring all the mean comments. You don't even know that you get them. So they're doing a good job.
Oh wow.
Um,
Does do apps bother? Do apps really care if you post a video on their app from a different platform? Do they care that much about that?
I think with Instagram, they did just because those TikToks had the watermarks that were on the side that said TikTok. So they certainly didn't want to push those on the algorithm, because
Okay.
TikTok was like their biggest competitor because you know how they copied Reels from TikTok and they didn't want to do that. But now TikTok, they save it high quality, no watermarks. So it's great. But okay. So, well, we brought up mean comments. Do you deal with much of that? And how do you handle it if you do?
Mm, mean comments are more of an in school thing. Well, they were more of an in school thing, but not anymore. How I deal with online mean comments? I mean, simple button, just trash the comment. If you're the owner of the post, you can trash the comment. I feel that if you respond, you could accidentally make yourself in bad light, and I have fallen victim to that before. So the
Mhm.
best part is to just trash the comment or block the person or just hide their post or do all three.
Yeah, you're completely right in that because it's like they want you to respond and like anything mean that they say, it says so much more about them than it says about you because they're the one that's taking the time out of their day to hurt someone else's feelings. So it can be hard for me to just brush it off for sure. But yeah, that's really cool that it honestly hasn't been as bad for me the last 6 months or so. I think the censorship is getting better, but it can be tough, especially like when I was first starting out with all of that, when I was already kind of shy about it. But I'm glad you don't deal with that because it's not fun.
It's never fun. No.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about your goals for your content. I know you have some big ones.
Um, reach a certain amount of subscribers, followers, get more interviews, get more people on my show for sure.
Mhm.
Um,
Talk. Who are some of your favorite guests that you've had?
let's see. So Cam Bynum had the best mentality.
Yeah,
Kyle
for
Sloter, Kyle Sloter was the smartest or most knowledgeable guy that I had as a
Mhm.
player, and Dalton Risner had the best attitude.
Oh yeah, he seems like such a fun guy. Well, obviously Cam also, but Cam and Dalton seem really cool. And
Yeah,
you had Harrison Phillips also,
yeah.
didn't you? Yeah, and that was a great interview.
Uh, Another great guy. I can't believe that some of these players aren't from Minnesota because the second they come to the Vikings, they already inherit that Minnesota nice in them already. It's incredible.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, when you get these players on your team, especially the current players, does it still kind of like shock you? Like, kind of got to pinch yourself that you're really talking to them, or are you like just like whatever? They're just a regular person.
It's never a whatever moment. When you talk to great people, always cherish it. um Not even that makes me like feel like whoa. Even when I get tagged into fan giveaways and stuff like that, or like most appreciated content creators, it still like wows me that wow, I'm one of the people that they really admire as a content creator, and that still makes me feel like incredibly um grateful. And I also never let it get to my head too, because I know that I'm still growing, and well, obviously I'm still growing like physically, but I'm also growing content wise and just social media wise.
Yeah, it's always so nice just to even be thought of in those lists or when people give compliments. It's so nice that people even take the time to do that. And I try to always remind myself that okay, these people could be doing anything in the world with their hour or with their 2 minutes or whatever the case is. They could be doing literally anything, and they're choosing to spend their hour watching me, talk nonsense or tell some story. So yeah, you always got to try to be really grateful for that stuff.
It's another
Um,
one of those. It's another one of those. This wheel could have landed on anyone out of the entire world, and it landed on me. It's another one of those things.
well, I don't know about that. Not everybody is such a go getter like you. I mean,
That is true. Thank you.
yeah, and it couldn't be just anybody. It takes like a special person to be so motivated, especially when you were young and so confident to do it. Absolutely.
Hmm.
And I know you talked to Paul Allen, right?
Love that guy.
Yeah, and he gives you shout outs all the time, which isn't that so cool?
He gave me a shout out after, well, actually Stephen A. Smith a year and a day ago. So hold on. So yesterday was exactly a year since Stephen A. Smith gave me that shout out on his show with the question that I asked, and he answered it very well. And Paul Allen was one of the first guys to comment showing his appreciation for me as well.
Yeah.
Um, my mind was so blown last year over so many of those accomplishments. Most of the stuff that came, like the interviews and the shout outs and all that, that was mostly all happening last year and last off season and all that.
Right. Why don't you share? I saw it on your Instagram story, but why don't you share for anyone who didn't see it what you asked Stephen A. Smith and he read it on air?
I asked him, told him actually that I wanted to become an NFL analyst for the Minnesota Vikings. I
Mhm.
told him I admired the work he was doing and asked him, what he does, what he likes to do, or what's the best part for him about what he does. Then he said, doing what I love to do, doing what I feel I was born to do, sports, commentary, writing, voicing thoughts and opinions. Then he gave me a very good point. He said, it doesn't only matter, only, keyword, only, doesn't only matter how much I love being an NFL analyst for the Minnesota Vikings, because it won't stop there. Eventually I'm going to want to call some big games that aren't Vikings games. You know, let's say in some miracle dimension the Vikings go 17-0 and the team they're playing is 1-16. Uh but let's say there's this huge nail biting game in Kansas City between Kansas City and Baltimore, Kansas City and the Eagles or something like that. And they're both 16 or no 15-1 actually. That's how it goes for the seasons now. But that's how it goes. 15-1. And let's say it's between Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes and it's a battle for the 1 seed in the AFC. I definitely want to go towards the action, like towards where more of the action is and where the nail biting games are, because I feel like during those games you get recognized more for calling a great game. You
Mm.
know, as much as I love being an analyst for the Vikings, you know what? If someone asked me, you know what, you should do commentary on this Vikings game. It's a stressful game though, and I'm like, nope, we're skipping that one. I don't want to have a temper tantrum on air. That's not happening.
Yeah.
So doing other games of other teams will give me better insight on how those teams are, the way they operate, and the better info about the players too.
Yeah, it can be difficult to like separate the fandom from being a professional sometimes. I don't know how, and you can see even in our community, there's some journalists that are you can tell they are definitely fans and they can't really hide it that well, even though they're supposed to cover everybody. And that's kind of cool, but it also can mean that like you give a biased analysis of what's going on just naturally, so it can be, that's a great idea to check yourself and not just pigeonhole yourself with just the Vikings.
Oh, PA tries to hide that a lot. Have you seen him during the preseason games? He always expresses his fandom. Well, tries to hide it, doesn't really hide it. I can see it, but it's not really a big deal.
Yeah, with him, especially because he's like the official Vikings game day announcer. You expect it to some extent for sure. Because I think because it's on the radio, it's being broadcasted on KFan, so I think the listeners appreciate that, and he is so good at that part of his job for sure. I know a lot of people feel conflicted about his actual radio show from 9 to noon. If some people like it and some people don't, but unanimously, people appreciate the work that he does as a play-by-play guy for sure.
I definitely wouldn't mind being on that 9 to noon show, that 9 to noon show again. That's definitely something that because one, you don't have to show your face.
Yeah.
Um, Two, um, I could be anywhere I want to be while talking on that podcast. I could be laying in bed,
Mhm.
sitting or sitting on my chair and just basically just at my broadcasting area while listening to it. I could be anywhere on the couch, anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were on his actual show. I remember that, but just for anyone who didn't know, he invited you to call into the show, right?
Right, and I think I have the audio of that on my channel,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's just so cool to be noticed by somebody like as talented as him. Like it feels really good. All right.
Feels
Well,
amazing.
let's talk about what's coming up for the Vikings because we got to try at least to get that depression away. We only have Are we 2 weeks away? Oh no, 3 weeks away from free agency. I want to say it starts March 14th or so, 12th or so.
Believe
Uh,
so.
so yeah, it's coming up quick here, and we've got a lot of Vikings that are up for potential to leave, or they're going to get offered new deals. Who is if they could only take? Well, we'll do two. If they could keep two players that are up on the chopping block, who would you choose?
Um, I saw this one Twitter post that said that really like pulled me into it and really convinced me. I think he was just a big fan of this guy, but Byron Murphy Jr. Like one guy he said Quasey's really gonna let this guy go into free agency, huh? And then showed like a highlight reel of all his plays. Now, I like Byron Murphy, but the thing is, if we're gonna keep him, we're gonna need to
Mhm.
draft a corner who doesn't have to play in the slot alone like he usually does.
Right. So, what camp are you in? Do you think that, well, do you want them to keep Byron Murphy?
I'd say keep Byron Murphy and keep Camryn Bynum.
Okay. So, you want them to draft a high defensive player then? That would be your choice.
I just can't stand losing Bynum.
Yeah, I
Can't
know.
stand that.
I know. I love him so I mean, I think everybody universally loves him. Just the morale boost that he brings to the team and how much he just cares about the guys and I think that I think it's so cool when men, especially that play in a masculine sport like football, are just so vulnerable and are comfortable sharing that, that they're crying because they love the guys so much or getting emotional about losing, like, not in an angry way, in like an emotionally mature way. Cause I think that's such a good influence on younger people, maybe even, hopefully, even older people, that it's okay to be like that.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the two that you're sticking with. Do you think that they will trade back in the first round? Yeah. Cause they don't
By
have a lot of
trade
picks. They don't have a lot of picks. So they don't
by
got a lot
trade
of.
by trade back, do you mean from 24 and then like backwards, or like 24 and like higher up?
24 and backwards. Like, say if they
Oh,
trade back, they'll add an additional, or they don't even have a second round pick right now, I don't believe. They'll pick up a second round pick or something like that. Get some of those picks back by trading backwards.
okay, okay. Kind of like what Quasey did with Lewis Cine against versus
Yeah.
Kyle Hamilton. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Vikes fans. I didn't mean to say that guy's name. Sorry.
Yeah, earmuffs on that one. Yeah, similar to that, how he traded back to 31. So I believe, I should know since I just did a series on the 2022 draft. I think, yeah, he picked up a second round pick that he later traded again
It
to
was
the Packers.
32 actually.
Oh, 32. I'm sorry. Yeah, obviously 32. It was the very last. I know it was the very last because I was at that draft party till the bitter end. Uh,
Um, the reason I know that is because my dad and I were sitting in Fremont, California at the time at this pizza place watching the draft live. We were
mhm,
all so excited for 12, like Kyle Hamilton, and then all of a sudden it gets moved back to 32, and we see, hold on, why do the Lions have our pick? Then we
mhm.
just go home. Then my dad sees that we drafted Lewis Cine, and he read it to me, but he didn't look like the happiest about it
Yeah.
since day one.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of PA, I'll have this story about him. So we're there. The Vikings trade back to the end. So I don't know. I don't have any concept of time, but we end up being at the Vikings draft party forever, and a lot of people had left since then. And so during the draft party, they're doing a live show up there on the stage, and PA, like, we're waiting all night for this. You've got the draft, like, music, the sound, the do 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 do, and the pick is in, right? And PA must have got a text that told him who the pick was. And he's up on the stage. He's like, oh my God, I just got a text. I don't like it. I don't like it. He's pacing around the stage. Oh, he's like distraught. He's like, oh, he's just over his eyes. Like, I don't like it. I don't like it. And so we're all sitting there like, can you shut up? Like, we've been waiting for this all night. And then he goes, oh, I can't say who it is. Okay, you guys. Okay, it's a defensive player. I can say that. I can say that. So he totally spoiled this moment that we've been waiting for like 5 or 6 hours at this point by already putting it like in our mind that it wasn't a good pick. I was so mad. I'm like, dude, I was here all night. I want to experience the emotions untainted. So
Right.
yeah, I wasn't too happy with him that night, but I think a lot of people were disappointed in that pick and trading back because they had such a high position. They could have really gotten an impact player. And people bring up the Kyle Hamilton situation all the time. I'm sure Kwesi wishes he could take that draft back overall, the
I
whole
actually
bit.
made a joke on Twitter because Lewis Seen, remember, he went to the Eagles and the Eagles just won the Super Bowl,
Mhm.
sadly. Um, Lewis Seen, we trade this guy and then he goes to win the Super Bowls. Isn't that crazy?
I know. He didn't even take a snap though, right? But he still gets a ring.
Yeah. So, we played the Eagles in 2022, and Lewis Seen was supposed to take the snap or take one of the snaps back in I think it was week 2 on Thursday Night Football. He didn't take any snap against the Eagles, and then he doesn't take any snap when he gets on the Eagles 2 years later. So,
Yeah.
um, taking no snaps in Philly just wins him rings, I guess.
Well, I know I was looking at his stats as I was making that series on the 2022 draft, and he had been, when I was looking that up, he had been activated, or he had been, on the roster, well, the live roster. Oh my god, why am I skipping or spacing on what that's called? Activated, I suppose, for one game, and that was the game the previous week, and across the board it was 0 0 0 0 0. So I knew he wasn't really contributing, but he did at least have the opportunity to maybe be put in there. A bummer about what happened to him, but are you okay? Are you a big college football guy, or do you just start getting into the draft in the off season?
Um, not the biggest college football guy ever, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I am glad that even though JJ McCarthy came out of Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to be Michigan's nightmare for the next who knows how many years.
Yeah, you
And
feel
by
confident
Michigan, I
about
mean specifically Detroit. Specifically
that?
Detroit, obviously.
Yeah. So you feel confident that JJ McCarthy is going to be the future, like the franchise quarterback of this team? I don't mean just this year. You feel confident that he's sticking with us for a decade?
I just hope he isn't injury prone, like actually injury prone, because we saw. I mean, I looked at that tape and I looked at his entire snaps against the Raiders in the preseason, and I
Mm-hmm.
and I looked at it and I was like, this guy looked like he got injured a bit too easily. I hope that doesn't drag into his career. I hope that he doesn't really get, um, you know, hit so hard that he can't get back up moments. I hope that doesn't happen at all. I hope that he can take a decent hit. I hope he won't have to because, like I said, we need an offensive guard in this draft. But I hope that he's durable enough to take big hits because you've got guys in the league like T.J. Watt, Dexter Lawrence, Miles Garrett, who Jay Jettis wanted on this team. Justin
Mm-hmm.
Jefferson wanted on this team. So just all these defensive linemen and all these defensive players that are so dynamic and so explosive. And if one of them gets to McCarthy, then I hope he can get back up from one of those hits because those were pretty tough. That the hits they make are.
Yeah. And the meniscus is always tough. It is like the easiest. I mean, thankfully it wasn't an ACL or something detrimental like that. But I think because I've torn every other ligament in my knee, but never the meniscus. So I think from what I understand from people, because you can still walk, you can still run, and it's uncomfortable, but it's not necessarily like this very sharp pain. And it is the easiest ligament to repair in someone's knee. I think people, because we had night practice, I want to say night practice was the very next night, and JJ wasn't there. And everyone's like, what? Where is he? And someone that I was friends with at the time had a contact with someone who knew him really well. And they texted me, oh, yeah, he's fine, just has a sprain. So I think it took him a bit to even find out what it was. But it was mysterious in hindsight that he wasn't even there. It wasn't that he wasn't dressed, he wasn't even there. So maybe they did know at that time. I will say I was really surprised to hear this about Teddy Bridgewater when he came. He was on a podcast where he was sharing his story, and he had said that actually the week before in his preseason game is when he believes he actually tore his ACL, which is crazy that I mean, I guess as football players, you're taught to just shrug it off, but an ACL tear is insane. And then, he went and did practice the next week. He didn't get it checked out. And then, we all saw what happened there, that catastrophic injury. So I think these athletes, it's just, you don't question that it's something really serious always because you want to play.
Right. Do you know Andy from the Purple FTW podcast?
I do. I've known Andy
Now,
for a long time.
The 2021 season and like early 2022, before I moved to Mass, and then like a little after, I was really into him for before my channel was getting a bit bigger. But you know what he would have said about JJ McCarthy not being there?
What?
He would have used his famous term. He was abducted by aliens during
Oh,
that practice. Just wasn't there. That's what Andy would always say. That's what Andy would always say.
okay. He's a big conspiracy theory guy. I
Hmm.
get it. Yeah, I understand that. So, will you be like following the combine and those things? Are you going to do a mock draft on your show?
I don't mock that
Yeah.
much.
Okay. I mean, I hate a mock draft. I hate it. It stresses me out. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
We,
Um, Mocking and then succeeding in the mock draft just reminds me of how much the Vikings need to succeed in this draft, and if they don't, then what was the point of mocking anyway? I'd rather do Madden all day than mock.
yeah, I think it's just fun to think about in the off season, like people that really are into the draft and follow the prospects, and it's fun. But of course, it could never be accurate for really anyone because you can't anticipate what the trades are going to be. That always throws a loop in it right away, even if somebody who really is tied in and in the know. You just can't predict that stuff. So it's not about getting it right. I think it's just about having fun. But it's still I still feel so much pressure when I am asked to do them. I used to have to do them with Dustin Baker all the time, and I would be like pulling my hair out when it would come up to me. But he knows I don't do mock drafts anymore. There will be no mock drafts on Skoldiers and Spice unless I'm just the color commentator and like four people want to come on and do it. So
A big mock draft guy is Yogi for sure, Uncle Yogi from I forget his
mhm.
podcast name. He changed it one time. It used to be Purple Rain 247. I know that. Um, but
Yeah.
Uncle Rap from Vocal Vike, he definitely knows him very well. So
Yeah, we love Vocal Vike here on Vikings First and Skull. He's the best. I loved
yep.
yeah, love being on his show and yeah, all those guys that put together Skull Fest, Sean, Purple Mafia or Skull Mafia, they're so great and supportive of everyone. Um are you going to be back at Skull Fest this year? I'm assuming you will be.
I'm gonna give a confident absolutely for that one.
Yeah, we can't
Um,
have it without you.
I love how Uncle SK always goes. I from now on, JJ, he says to me, from now on, nephew, we're gonna start planning the second the season ends. The second it ends, we're gonna immediately start planning for the next Skull Fest. Gotta lock everything down before before it even becomes a thought, for the rest of the people. Before it even becomes an idea for them for September. He wants to start planning immediately after the season ends. I like
Yeah,
that.
I like that too. It's cool how much effort those guys put into planning it, and every year it grows. But it's so crazy to me that they don't even live here and they plan it and put it together. It makes me feel honestly a little embarrassed that I didn't think about it. I live just down the street. I could have put it together, but I didn't have the idea. So they really are so cool that they did that, and I love it when everybody gets together. I that's why I host a tailgate is because I just love connecting with people and especially those that are from out of town. I always want them to feel like they have a place to go and feel welcome because people did that for me when I didn't live here. And I honestly probably would have never moved here if it wasn't for those people that made me feel like this was my home already. It wasn't like
I
I was, you know.
I never would have ever guessed that you were from Virginia. Never would have guessed that.
No, is my accent not come out pretty often? No
No
accent.
accent.
Oh, okay.
It's
Thank
the
you.
same thing with me too. Like no matter where I go, I'll have an American accent, but I'll never have an accent from a specific area. Like an
Yeah.
accent from like I don't think I'll ever start saying Minnesota or like big or whatever like that. I don't think I'll
Oh,
ever start talking like that, like the strong Minnesota accents.
mhm.
But I will definitely proudly say I am a Minnesotan still, and that'll never change. And a huge Vikings fan, of course, through thick and thin. But as far as accents go, I think I'll just have a just an American accent, not really an a regional accent.
Right. And then you moved around a few places. So of course you're not going to pick it up. My Virginia accent comes out the most when I'm around other people. So if I go home, I'll come back with an accent. Or my friend Josh, that's from Tennessee, if he and I are around each other for too long, it'll come up. And definitely if I'm drinking, people always comment on it. Especially if I'm like happy drinking it, it comes out. But otherwise, I don't get called out on it too much anymore. So,
Mm.
so that's good. I just spaced on what I was going to ask you. I feel like I had such a good question to ask you. I don't remember,
Was it
but
was it draft related?
no, maybe not. Do you ever go to away games?
Away games. Wow. I one of the things that it's one of the things that I really want to go to next year. One of the things that I really want to explore for next year. Away games, definitely. Um, I don't know if I ever got to go to an away game where I'd want to go.
Mhm.
Wisconsin is very close, but it's the evil to the east. Come on. And by the way, that quote, I'm just gonna say I give credit to Sports and Stars with Jade for that quote. That
Okay.
podcast is incredible.
Credit where credit's due. I haven't heard of it. I'll have to check it out. Are they
Oh,
on YouTube too, or they are just audio?
oh, YouTube.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to look them up. Well, I love going to away games. It's fun, but unfortunately this year there's not any away opponents that I really want to go to. They're playing like AFC North, so Cleveland and which other one? Oh, Pittsburgh. They're playing those two. They are playing the Giants, so that's not that far from you. Or yeah, it is Giants. Yeah, not the Jets. Are they playing the Jets?
I'm
I
a
don't know.
little disappointed
One
that I
of
didn't. Um, I'm a little disappointed that I didn't go to the Vikings Giants game, uh, this past season. But at the
them.
same time, during the time of this game, my mom and I were like packing for Skull Fest and all that, so we couldn't. If there was a bigger separation between the games, like
Hmm.
if Skull Fest was at that time and then the Giants game was like 2 weeks later, maybe it could have been a bigger discussion. But two games, and one of them is more important than the other. The Niners game was more important because I was actually going there, going to Minnesota for that game. So that was
Yeah.
more important for me.
And what a great game for you to come for.
Oh, the 97-yard touchdown to Justin Jefferson. What was
Yeah.
disappointing was coming back and realizing that there was a better game the next week, like the Vikings Texans game. I kind of
Mhm.
wish I could have swapped out both those games because I'd much rather have like 34-7. I mean, that was incredible. But I'm grateful every single day for getting what I got.
Yeah, we haven't seen a game like a dominant game like the Texans game in US Bank Stadium that I can think of. I think that was the first one. We've seen them dominant the other way, but
Oh,
not that way. And but for me, I mean, from I was at both of them. Of course, the Texans game was great, but I really loved the 49ers game more, if I had to say, because it was when I realized, wow, this Sam Darnold, I didn't have any confidence in Sam Darnold going in. And you see the 97-yard touchdown, and you're like, oh my God. And this is a team, the 49ers team, that has been so dominant the last, I mean, definitely the last like 5 years, but even longer. So I thought, there's no way in hell they're going to beat them. No way. So for them to come out and play like they did, and it kind of came down to the end. So there was a lot of anxiety and a lot of anticipation.
oh my
Where,
god, that onside kick made my heart like just like stopped working for like half a second during that onside kick. Just half
yeah,
a second.
yeah.
Um, But in all seriousness, the Vikings actually could have scored more points that game because I had a 30. My prediction was 30-20. A touchdown and a field goal would have made it that way. So, um, we scored like a couple field goals, I think. So if we had just scored touchdowns instead of those field goals, the game could have been like 37 to. I'm gonna say 37-23 or something like that. It
Oh,
was it could have been a higher scoring game, is what I'm saying.
was it that high? I don't remember. I didn't
Oh,
remember.
23-17 is what it
Oh,
was.
okay. I was like, whoa, I don't remember. It was 37. Goodness. I don't, I forget the scores and stuff, especially when I'm there because it's just, there's so much going on, so much to take in. But I will say the best home game this year that you definitely would have wanted to be at was Atlanta Falcons game, 100%. That was the
Yeah.
best. Maybe I'm biased, but that was the absolute best to see Kirk Cousins. I mean, all year, the schedule comes out. That's circled on your calendar. Like, this is a must win. This is a must win. And then for them to play so dominant, Sam Darnold have 5 touchdowns, something Kirk Cousins could certainly never do. And it was exhilarating, especially for somebody like me who never liked Kirk Cousins. And I know you're in the same boat. So you would have loved
Um,
it.
actually, I wasn't like a Kirk hater. I just said to myself, "Oh, we'll roll with what we have," you know.
Right.
But in 2020, and oh my god, 2020. I know like the whole situation with what with the sickness going around. I don't really want to say because YouTube does stuff when you say that word,
Oh,
the
do
the
they?
virus word.
Oh, good
Yeah, it
for
puts
you.
like stuff in the description, so I'm not gonna say that. But
Mm.
with everything going around. But the best part of 2020 for me was, despite being cooped up at home, which at times was pretty fun. My dad would actually do this thing with me because we lived in Fremont, California. For the 10 a.m. games, we'd have apple pie because it was like our breakfast time and our football time.
Hmm.
The 1 p.m. games, we'd have a bag of Chex Mix, like a huge bag of Chex Mix for that game. Then for Sunday night football, we'd have pizza. Pizza was the number one food for our prime time games. The
Okay.
prime time games always make sure to have that pizza heated for that game. That was the number one thing for sure.
What's your pizza? What's your go-to?
My dad really loves the frozen ones, like Tombstone pizza,
Okay.
basically. And
Yeah.
I'll eat it too, but every once in a while I like them steaming fresh, like from I'm gonna say now not everyone would like these suggestions, but I'm gonna say Domino's and like Pizza Hut and like pizzas that just come out like steaming fresh, basically.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with a classic Tombstone, but I was a Domino's hater forever. Hated Domino's. It was just gross. And honestly, I tried it. I also tried it during COVID, I want to say, because the person who was, oh my God, I just said it. I just said it when you told
It's
me
all
not.
right.
I just said it when you told me not to. We might have to edit it out. The person who was quarantining with me, that was their favorite. So I'm like, oh, whatever, we'll get it. And it was so good. And now I got the app on my phone. If I ever need a pizza, I'm always getting Domino's, which I don't know if they changed the crust or what they changed, but it's up there for me now. I love it now.
One of the best parts of 2020 for me. There are things in my life that are so nostalgic that I could cry talking about them. I'm gonna say 10-year-old me in 2020, because I couldn't watch every game in Minnesota because when you're in California, you don't always get much Minnesota reception. So,
Right.
um, listening to this amazing content creator, Valhalla Sports Talk, uh,
Hmm.
his um, his incredible game commentary was the thing that would always help me. Um, and it was just so funny when he got mad about the Vikings losing. It was like he finds a way to make his anger humorous, which just drives more people towards his content.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I get upset though when I'm angry and people like laugh at it. It's like I'm not trying to be funny right now. Like, this is very serious. So I yeah, I admire him for that because I'm not joking around. Like when I was crying in Arizona, I wasn't joking around. I was serious.
Oh no,
Mm.
I didn't find that part funny at all. Actually,
Well, yeah, I don't think anybody really found it funny, but I'm sure people thought it was like being played up, like dramatics, for clicks or views or whatever. But no, that was the real me. I was down. I was down bad. All right, JJ. Well, that just flew by us talking for like an hour there. You
it's
have
been an
anything?
wow.
Almost.
It's been an hour.
Almost.
Wow.
Yeah, that just
Uh,
flew by. You have anything you want to add that people need to know about you?
I'm a big sports guy and a big video game guy too. Actually,
I was going to ask, are you into any other Minnesota sports? Are you a basketball NBA guy?
from time to time, I'll watch hockey with my dad because he was born, I believe, in northern Minnesota, and
Oh,
Minnesota is a very hockey like state. So,
it is.
um, I tend to watch games with him sometimes as well because if I'm from Minnesota and he's from Minnesota and I love football more and he loves hockey more, we gotta like one of us has to watch the
Mhm.
games that the other one likes. So I feel like rotating like that was something that I really really love to do with him.
Yeah. So have you gotten into hockey? Like, do you see, for me, not growing up with hockey, I started getting into it like the 2 years before I moved because I was like, well, I got to know what's going on. Same to like kind of what you just said. And I felt like it was difficult for me, or I should say challenging, to learn all the rules because it goes so fast. Just, if you didn't grow up watching it, it's like, what is happening? Okay, what do you mean? There's a blue. Oh my, I forgot because I gave up on hockey a few years ago because all the Wild fans were so mean to me. I forget it. But
Oh,
there's a lot of rules. There's a lot of rules.
but if you're a Minnesota, well, you're from Virginia, but if you're like a Minnesotan basically at heart, and they are too, what's the point of getting mad at each other? You know?
Well, the problem is, I'm number one Vikings, number two Timberwolves. Always have been. Not just when the Timberwolves
Yeah.
have been good. I've always been Timberwolves. And so these Twitter people, if they ever saw that I was at a Wolves game when a Wild game was at the same time, they would just talk so much crap to me. And it's like, what do you care? Why do you care what I'm doing with my free time? And then it got really bad when the Wolves were in the playoffs, not this past year. Oh my gosh, it must have been 2022. I don't know. I'm going to forget the year, but not this past year when they went to the Western Conference Finals. Maybe not even the year before that. The Houston Rockets year, they were like that too, but they were playing Memphis and same time as the Wild. And these people were just relentless to me in the comments. And finally, it just got to the point where, why would I want to like your sport when you guys treat me like this? You can be a fan of both, for one. They're very insecure about basketball for some reason. I don't get it. I
Why
don't
do
get
people
it.
get so mad about going to a different game if they're all Minnesota sports? The key word here, Minnesota. If you're a Minnesotan, then you can like Minnesotan sports or Minnesota sports. That's the
I
thing.
don't. It's a hot topic around here. If you ever listen to Dan Barrera, who's on at 3 o'clock here on KFan, he talks about it a lot about the rivalry. It's not on the basketball side. It's only a one sided, and they will call in because Dan talks about the Wolves a lot, and he always has. He's a basketball guy. They will call in and say, "Enough Timberwolves. We're here to. This is the state of hockey. We're talking about the Wild." It's like, serious. They are just not. They're not Wolves fans. They probably, a few of them did switch over last year when they went to the Western Conference Finals, and it was fun and drive up the ticket prices. But in general, they're not, and they're not nice to me at games either. So I stopped going. They're just, I don't know. I don't know.
Not cool.
Yeah, not cool. So I just decided, I actually muted on Twitter after that because I'm not joking. It wasn't like two people, and it was a lot. It was like multiple times. So I ended up muting Kaprizov. I muted whatever like other star players there was at the time. I even muted the word. Well, they were playing the Dallas Stars, so I muted that. I muted the word
Wait, what
wild.
Kaprizov do? Did Kaprizov like say something too? Because I thought he was like a really nice guy.
No, it was just people tweeted about him a lot. So I
Oh, okay.
muted it, and I think maybe it's just MN Wild that I have muted, but at one time it was Wild as well. So I'm like, God, I'm missing tweets about just the regular old Wild word. So I think I did take it off, but yeah, they scarred me for life, those Wild fans, and I haven't been back probably like 3 years or so. So all right, JJ. Well, tell everybody where to find you, where to find your show on YouTube, and where to get you on Instagram.
Where to find me? YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all under one name, JJ Vikings. If you guys like gaming as well, check out JJ Vikings Edits and Gaming. Um,
Oh, cool.
Recently I live streamed still trying to get that Spider-Man 2 game, but I streamed the Spider-Man remastered game, like the first game, so that one's pretty cool. But that's about all I do. Like analysis especially mostly, and then gaming, and then life.
Yeah. Well, you sound like a busy guy. You got a lot going on, a lot to balance. So keeps you busy.
I handle it pretty well.
Yeah, you do. You're a good multitasker. Well, it was so great to talk to you. We'll have to talk again because there's so much to talk about. Maybe I'll invite myself on your show. So we'll do that.
I
But
don't mind at all. I'd love to.
yeah. Thank you guys so much for tuning in here on Vikings First and SKOL. I don't know, like I said, I'll be on the couch for a while, you guys, but we will have more pre-recorded episodes for you. JJ, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate everybody listening. Love you guys. SKOL.
Skol Vikes.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And rate us on your favorite aggregator. And a big shout out goes to Sal and her guests on this Vikings First and SKOL production, partnered with the Fans First Sports Network. Thanks, everyone, and SKOL!